А говорил, что любит. Мелькнула в голове у девушки. Да, она была уверена, что верный ухажёр никуда не денется и будет рядом всегда. А уж в каком качестве, неважно. Да и они уже начали встречаться. И Лиза даже позволяла себя поцеловать. Ну и что только в щеку. Это пока в щеку, а там посмотрим. И этому внезапно пришел конец. Сашка потерянно смотрел на девушку, которую уже стал считать своей невестой. А она, как ни в чем не бывало, ела мороженое, понемногу откусывая от хрустящего вафельного стаканчика. Как будто не она, а кто-то другой только что разрушил его жизнь. Да, неожиданно и как-то походя, что ли. Они были знакомы еще с детского сада. И серьезному не по годам мальчику всегда нравилась пухлая Лиска с вкусной фамилией Капустина. В огороде пусто выросла капуста, кричал на прогулке свою любимую считалочку Сашка, тем самым проявляя к симпатичной девочке интерес. А она только гордо отворачивалась. Дескать, вижу, не напрягайся. Когда пришло время идти в 1 класс, он настоял, чтобы его записали в ту же школу, что и Лизу. Для этого даже пришлось заплакать. И это оказалось настолько неожиданно для родителей, что они согласились не отдавать мальчика в школу с углубленным знанием английского языка, как собирались ранее. Саша с Лизой просидели за одной партой все 10 классов. И все это время он был ее верным рыцарем, пажом и ангелом-хранителем, исполняющим почти все Лизины желания. А потом настало время поступать в институты. И тут уже они разделились. Вуз, который выбрала девушка, родителям Сашки было не потянуть. К тому же юношу больше привлекали точные дисциплины. Студенческая жизнь подхватила и завертела, на какое-то время вытеснив прежние увлечения и привязанности. Сашка даже немного изменил своему любимому предмету, поцеловался на вечеринке с однокурсницей. А Лиза с головой окунулась в учебу. Сердце и душа ее пока спали. Хотя кавалеры и поклонники у красивой девушки, конечно же, были. Все ограничивалось только походами в кино, кафе и прогулками. Даже целоваться с некоторыми не хотелось. Так прошло 3 года. А потом молодые люди увиделись на вечере встречи выпускников. И девушка поняла, что все это время ей не хватало старого друга. К тому же он изменился внешне. И из длинного нескладного юноши превратился в крепкого молодого человека. Правда, лицо так и осталось не очень симпатичным. И его даже не улучшала прекрасная улыбка, открывающая свои без единого дефекта зубы. Они проговорили весь вечер. Им было что вспомнить. И договорились встретиться. Потом еще и еще. И наивный кавалер, целуя барышню на прощание в щечку, уже стал строить планы. А в его мечтах уже колосились капустные качаны и летали аисты, снующие туда-сюда со свертками в клюве. У них с Лизкой будет не меньше 4 детей. И тут этот неожиданный отлуп, в который сначала Сашка не поверил. Но шутить подобным образом никто бы не рискнул. К тому же Лизка последнее время стала уклоняться от его поцелуев даже в щеку. А это был дурной знак. И тогда Сашка ушел, оставив девушку в одиночестве доедать любимое мороженое. Она покупала его независимо от времени года. Но Лизка, казалось, и этого не заметила. Она была поглощена огромным чувством, переполняющим ее до краев. Девушка, наконец, влюбилась. Да, 1 раз в жизни. Ее избранником оказался студент их вуза, который был на 2 курса старше. Они познакомились на институтской новогодней вечеринке. Молодой человек пригласил ее на медляк. Пронзительно пел про падающий снег дама. В полумраке в углу мигала огнями елка. И от какого-то радостного предвкушения и ожидания чуда радостно замирало сердце. В крепких руках незнакомца было легко и спокойно. Он обнимал девушку так, как будто бы имел на это право. И, возможно, так все и было. Он оказался чертовски привлекателен внешне. Этот молодой мачо, брутал, как принято сейчас говорить, с легким загаром и уверенным взглядом светлых глаз. Молодой человек представился. Его звали Романом, и они протанцевали весь вечер. Причем он не развлекал Лизу разговорами, как делала остальная шелупень, а только молча прижимал к себе. И это возымело неожиданное действие. К концу вечера девушка была уже влюблена, а он проводил ее до дома и попросил телефон. Судя по всему, у нее начинался роман с Романом, и это было ужасно романтично. Они начали встречаться. Ухажёр ждал ее в своем роскошном автомобиле. Оказалось, что у них совпадает расписание. И все вокруг ей завидовали. Роскошное авто, брутальный молодой кавалер с голливудской улыбкой. Чего еще можно было желать? Ромка оказался завидным женихом. И не прошло и полугода, как он сделал ей предложение. Точно так, как в сериалах, стоя на одном колене. И подарил роскошное колечко с россыпью бриллиантиков. У него были очень обеспеченные родители. Молодой человек был тем, кого называют мажором. Но он совершенно не кичился этим и вел себя скромно. Поэтому можно было считать, что Лизе повезло. Только в их отношениях была крохотная капелька дегтя. Рома почему-то не настаивал на интиме, хотя девушка была уже не против. И все остальные молодые люди хотели именно этого. А он нет. У нас все с тобой будет только после брака, любимая. Но это небольшое недоразумение совершенно терялось в ворохе достоинств кавалера. Лизка радовалась свалившемуся на нее счастью и пыталась хоть в чем-то соответствовать жениху. Поэтому рассказала, что мама с папой уже накопили ей на квартиру, которую обязательно подарят после свадьбы. И Ромка неподдельно обрадовался. Вот что значит настоящие любящие родители. Но вскользь упомянул, что его родители тоже хотят им подарить на свадьбу квартиру. Хотя он у них просил мотоцикл. «А зачем нам 2 квартиры, заинька?» «А, и правда», — согласилась Лизка. «Куда их, солить, что ли?» И они весело стали смеяться над удачной шуткой. А потом Ромка, смущаясь, попросил. «Слушай, а может, одолжим у твоих родителей денег и купим нам мотоцикл? Я о нем давно мечтал. Ты знаешь, что такое скорость? А когда ты мчишься по ночному городу? Я покажу тебе все. А долги мой папа потом легко покроет. Я у них единственный сын». И девушку зацепило слово «нам». Не мне купим, а нам. А и правда, почему бы не купить жениху, то есть им, мотоцикл? Ведь они уже собрались подавать заявление, и кавалер хотел познакомить ее с родителями. И девушка пошла на то, что в нашем уголовном кодексе называется кражей в крупных размерах. Перевела с карты папы требуемую сумму на карту любимому. Как же он был рад. «Завтра заеду за тобой на новом мотоцикле и поедем в ЗАГС». И перед этим меркли даже без спроса взятые деньги. У них же теперь все общее. К чему китайские церемонии? Квартира-то все равно будет. Ни завтра, ни послезавтра Ромка не заехал, а телефон его оказался недоступен. Не иначе с ним что-то случилось. Может быть, он попал в реанимацию. Его срочно сразил какой-нибудь новомодный недуг. Или вступился на улице за кого-нибудь. И теперь лежит весь загипсованный в травме. И очень даже просто. Он ведь такой чуткий, ее Ромка. Как вариант, молодому человеку срочно пришлось уехать, потому что у родни в другом городе появились неприятности. И он их срочно должен был уладить. Поэтому пришлось для этого даже взять академ. Вариантов была большая туча, и встревоженная Лизка поступила логично. Побежала к его однокурсникам, у которых только что закончилась лекция. Расписания у них совпадали. Но оказалось, что Рому никто не знает. Как так? А так, его никто не видел на лекциях. Девушка показала фото в телефоне, и никто из однокурсников не учился с ним в одной группе. Этого просто не могло быть. Ну не человек же он, невидимка, честное слово. Было видно, что студенты что-то напутали. Одни гулянки на уме, а ее Ромка не такой. Ясно было, что нужно идти в деканат. Уж там-то должны были знать. А еще там можно будет получить адрес любимого, который она за все время так и не удосужилась спросить. И тут выяснилось, что никакого романа на 5 курсе нет и не было. Вадиков, Олегов и даже Аркадиев было полно. А молодого человека с таким именем не оказалось. Извините, девушка. И уж тем более никто не брал академотпуск. Они бы, конечно, это запомнили. На выпускном курсе этого почти не происходило. Лизка остолбенела. «Вы шутите? Такого не может быть. Мы же познакомились на огоньке в нашем вузе. И он уже сделал мне предложение». И работники деканата смотрели с сожалением на девушку. Да, влипла. Отступили от правил и дали ей посмотреть все личные дела с фотографиями, среди которых ее любимого почему-то не оказалось. «Ну вот же кольцо! Кто же мне тогда его подарил?» Цеплялась за соломинку Лизка, не желая признавать, что ее подло обманули. «А вы уверены, что это не подделка?» Вдруг предположила одна пожилая тетенька, повидавшая жизнь. Ведь маленькая ложь рождает большое недоверие. И добавила: «Единожды солгавший». И Лизка в каком-то отупении побежала в ближайший ломбард. Кольцо действительно оказалось бижутерией. Научились делать не отличишь. И ведь один в один золото-бриллианты. И только тут до девушки стало доходить истинное положение вещей. Ее банально обманули. В полицию идти не имело смысла. Ведь деньги она отдала сама. А еще предстоял разговор с родителями. которые потом и кровью в наше непростое время набрали любимой дочь на квартиру, исчезнувшую в неизвестном направлении вместе с потенциальным зятем. Что делать, было непонятно. И тогда она вспомнила о Сашке. Ну, конечно, вот кто ей поможет. Он же ее очень любит и ради нее готов на все. Поэтому обязательно что-нибудь придумает. И ничего, что она тогда его отшила, а потом не звонила полгода. Он обязательно простит свою любимую, как делал всегда. И Лиза набрала знакомый номер. «Слушаю». Неожиданно раздался в трубке женский голос. Это было неожиданно. Поэтому Лиза на секунду замешкалась, а потом произнесла: «Попросите, пожалуйста, Александра». «Вы, наверное, с работы?» – затараторила девушка. «А он уже уехал, просто телефон забыл. Но вы не волнуйтесь, он скоро появится на объекте». «А вы кто будете?» – поинтересовалась Лиза. «Как кто?» – удивились по ту сторону экрана. «Жена, конечно». «Алло, алло, вас не слышно». Лиза отключилась. «Жена. Вот это номер». Она сидела на лавочке. Любимое мороженое таяло в упаковке рядом. Что-то часто за последнее время ее стало настигать это самое отупение. Но факт оставался фактом. Видимо, Сашка, женившись, уже стал подрабатывать по специальности. Семью надо было кормить. Он всегда был очень надежным. А говорил, что любит. Мелькнуло в голове у девушки. Да, она была уверена, что верный ухажёр никуда не денется. И будет рядом всегда. А уж в каком качестве, неважно. «Но ты же начала первая, голова твоя садовая», — произнес внутренний голос. Он только ответил на твою попытку поставить ему мат и удачно увернулся. А твой класс игры оказался невысоким, как говорил товарищ Бендер. «Ах ты, гроссмейстер херов», — грустно подумала о себе Лизка. Даже на пару ходов просчитать не могла. Вот и сиди теперь без денег, любимого человека и верного друга. Было обидно и очень стыдно. А ведь еще предстоял разговор с родными. К тому же все институтские подружки знали о ее романе и завидовали, что ей так повезло с женихом. Вот позорище-то. Да, так оплошать. И ведь не наивная, и не верящая всему пенсионерка. Вроде в уме и твердой памяти она воротила неизвестно что. И все это проклятущая любовь. Телефон тилинькнул, и на нем высветился номер отца. «Доча, ты не в курсе, что тут с деньгами? Почему у нас не хватает большой суммы? Господи, как же все быстро. Особенно возмездие». И девушка встала, чтобы поехать домой и объяснить родителям то, что им явно не понравится. Но это уже будет совершенно другая история. А мороженое осталось дотаивать на скамейке.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn, Alright, everyone's presentations are done. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me. There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. Still here? Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick! What's wrong? Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I immediately followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.